Requisite skills for pre-calculus. Skill number 3A, domain using the three-question method. The three-question method for finding domain is based on starting with a domain of all real numbers and then asking three questions. 1. Are there any values that lead to division by 0? Exclude those values from your domain. 2. Are there any values that lead to even roots of negative numbers? Exclude those values from the domain. 3. Are there any values that lead to the log of a non-positive number? Exclude those values from the domain. Whatever remains at that point is your domain. Let's consider some examples. Identify the domain of f of x equals the square root of x plus 5 over the quantity x squared minus 3x. We start with the first question. Are there any values that cause you to divide by 0? Taking the denominator x squared minus 3x and saying it's not equal to 0, we can factor the left-hand side and then set each of those factors not equal to 0. Solving, we obtain that x cannot be 0 and x cannot be 3. Now we move to the second question. Are there any values that lead you to take the root of a negative number? In this case, we have a square root in the numerator of the function. Therefore, the quantity inside that square root must be greater than or equal to 0. So x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 0. Solving, we obtain that x must be greater than or equal to negative 5. Now we turn to the third question. Are there any values that cause you to take the log of a non-positive number? In this case, there is no logarithm in the function. Therefore, this does not apply. So, the domain of this function is x greater than or equal to negative 5 and x is not equal to 0 or 3. Writing this in interval notation, we have negative 5 inclusive to 0 non-inclusive, union, 0 non-inclusive to 3 non-inclusive, union, 3 non-inclusive to infinity, non-inclusive. Let's consider a second example. h of x equals log base 2 of x minus 19 over the quantity square root of 29 minus x. Again, we begin with the first question. Are there any values that cause you to divide by 0? In this case, the denominator is the square root of 29 minus x, so that cannot be equal to 0. But if the square root cannot be equal to 0, then the quantity inside also cannot be equal to 0. So 29 minus x cannot equal 0. Solving, we obtain that x cannot be equal to 29. For the second question, are there any values that cause you to take the even root of a negative number? In this case, we have a square root in the denominator. Therefore, the contents of that square root, 29 minus x, must be greater than or equal to 0. But our answer to the first question eliminated 29 and also told us that what's inside could not even be equal to 0. Therefore, we're really considering 29 minus x greater than 0. Solving, we obtain that x must be less than 29. Turning to the third question, are there any values that cause you to take the log of a non-positive quantity? In this case, that means that x minus 19 must be greater than 0. Solving, we obtain that x must be greater than 19. Putting the results together, we obtain that the domain must be x greater than 19 and less than 29. In interval notation, that would be 19 non-inclusive to 29 non-inclusive.